I've been working with young people on dialysis for the last 30 years. I have found them to be the age group most at risk and most challenging. And yet, in the literature, I find the least amount of information. I do not believe that the young adult is like the rest of our renal patients. The average age of starting dialysis is 65. And in our program, the young adults make up 10% of our population.
The young adult patient is unique, chiefly because of the way kidney disease interrupts essential developmental tasks people are going through during this period of their lives. This video will explore 4 aspects of treatment related to these developmental tasks. First, we will discuss how kidney failure interferes with the social and psychological development of young adults. These developmental tasks include maturation and individuation, developing the self-image and a sense of self-worth, and the understanding of and experimentation with sexual development. Secondly, we will discuss what are some of the characteristics that young adults present to the renal team. These characteristics include withdrawing and being uncommunicative, anger and a feeling of being overwhelmed, fear and resistance to the medical plan. Third, we will examine some ways the renal team can customize care for young adults, such as understanding the reasons for risk-taking and non-compliance, and the effective use of peer mentoring processes. Finally, we will suggest some relational approaches that work well with this age group, such as getting the patient's buy-in and letting the young adult patient make critical decisions, listening to and giving the patient respect, allowing the formation of a more personal relationship with the patient, establishing appropriate personal and professional boundaries, and dealing directly with the young adult patient, him or herself.
Well, young people, or rather people in my age group, we're at this point where we're not being needy and being dependent is just so important. And this idea of I need to depend on someone else just doesn't work with everything else in my life that's saying you need to learn not to be so needy. You need to learn to be self-sufficient.
It has to be confusing for them. I mean, there's a lot of things happening in this phase. I mean, during that time, we were hit with all kinds of things, like what are we going to do with our lives? Who are we really? You know, will I ever get married? Will I ever have kids? I want to go to college, but, you know, I'm dependent on dialysis and, you know, I can't get around. So there's a lot of things going around in their heads that even the young adults have normally, and on top of that, they have a chronic illness like end-stage renal disease that is compounding this.
I remember my own teen years. They were difficult emotionally for me, and self-image, you know, sense of my own sense of self-worth and insecurities, and you know, the whole social pressures that seem to be so acute in teenagers. Certainly, many young adults that I've met outside of dialysis are very focused in on body image issues and peer opinion. And if you're have a kidney transplant and you're taking prednisone and it alters your body image and makes your acne worse, or changes the shape of your face or makes you gain body weight, or you're on peritoneal dialysis, for example, and gain body weight or have a large abdomen like a middle-aged person because of all the fluid in there, those body image issues have to impact on people.
Well, in a society where a lot is placed on youth and a lot of places on our image, and, you know, people, young adults, are very keen or are very aware of their body image and how that plays out. I mean, we only have to watch TV at night to figure out that so much is placed on beauty. And if you don't have it according to those commercials, then you're nobody. So with chronic illness and kidney disease in itself, we do a lot of things to these young adults that scar them, literally scar them. We put access in their arms that they then have to hide or are embarrassed to show, or we put tubes in their belly so during this stage of their life when they're supposed to be experimenting around sexually, then suddenly they have to explain what a tube is hanging out of them, or something in their arm. It looks like they've shot up and they're doing drugs or something like this. So there's a lot of issues and a lot of questions that they just don't want to deal with at that time of their life when they're trying to interact with other people their age.
Some of the issues that I have found difficult to accept or understand when I've dealt with young adults with kidney failure over the years are the, I guess, lack of communication and lack of trust, mostly. Many young adults are not real forthcoming with their feelings at first. They don't automatically trust you just because you're in the healthcare environment, and I'm not sure that they assume that you're going to help them necessarily. So it takes a while to develop effective communications or to develop a relationship, and then you really start hearing what's going on in their heads.
Working with young people has been a focus in my life because I notice a high degree of them being withdrawn, more so than any other patient, when I came here to the university, and it bothered me at that time. So since then, I always tried to figure out ways to draw them out and make them more interactive and challenge them and make them talk. I don't think young adults know what they're angry about. And I think we just have to allow them to be angry and let them determine that themselves. We can say that. We can say they are mad at karma. We can say whatever. But I don't think they know. And that's why active listening is the most important thing. Is just letting them listening to them and acknowledging them and letting them figure it out and giving them space and a safe space to figure it out.
Before the kidney disease became a part of my life, I was angry. I was an angry young man because life was hard. I was an angry person who was getting better. You know, it really appeared as if things were finally about to go my way. And then this doctor says, you have this disease that will probably kill you. And I just went to a whole nother level with my anger. I became someone who was not approachable. I just couldn't understand why this was happening to me.
Young adults are going to be extremely upset and angry that they have kidney failure. It's almost like a spider. There's so many different legs that reach into so many different parts of your life. Whether you have a transplant and then you have this huge regimen of medication that you have to take, and then all the side effects that go on to that. So you think you're more normal, but you're becoming less and less normal.
They're just starting their life, and it's such an exciting time. They have so many dreams. I know how I felt at that age. And then to have something such as this basically thrown at them, and how devastating that must be. Because sometimes they come to you in shock, and it's very hard for them to understand, why did this happen to me?
And I guess that's the toughest, is to get it in your head, to get it straight, and to do it, and to pay attention to the doctors, because they always, are on you about doing it all the time, and making sure you're at the hospital when you need to be, and when you need to be at the doctors, and if you miss those things, sometimes those just come. I get a little stressed about those, or I used to, is because it seemed like that's, every day I had to hear about, oh, you have kidney disease, you have kidney disease, and sometimes I just didn't want to, I was still doing my dialysis, but I just didn't want to have to go to the doctors and talk to them.
The surface, I think, many young adult ESRD patients that I've cared for had a sense of bravado, and like to project the fact that they were invincible. But I think inside, most of them were having internal conversations about death all the time.
Really, I felt like I can do whatever I wanted to do on my time. I don't have to do it when they ask me to. Everybody my age feels, yes, I can live forever. I can do what I want to do, and I will be here tomorrow. Which, in some cases, may be a bit true, but internally, we are suffering. We might, on the outside, we may look like, yeah, I can go and I can jump off a 10-foot building and jump back up, but inside, it's like, it's pretty bad.
I think young people facing it don't want to feel that their hopes and dreams are gone, that they don't have any chance of having a future. And it's important to remember that they still want to be able to have friends. They want to be able to go out and have a few drinks once in a while. They want to be able to go out dancing. They want to know that they can have a family someday.
They're difficult because they don't see themselves really as sick. And they don't want to be different than anybody else. They want to be the same as their peers. So it's more difficult to get through to them, to get them to listen to you.
One of the other things that frustrates me when I work with young adults has to be non-adherence to medical plan. But having raised two teenagers, I have come to realize over the years that young adults are exactly that. They're adults who want to make their own decisions and their own choices, and they'll compromise their medical care to meet their own needs, not to meet my needs. And so I just kind of try to recite a mantra and stay cool and recognize and try not to personalize it as them hurting me, but recognize it as them making their own choices based on the pressures that they have in their lives. That's not always an easy thing to do, but it's good advice, even though I can't always follow it.
My nurse is going to hate me for this because she probably didn't notice. Because I'm very slick, and I can keep a straight face and just sit there and tell a bold-faced lie and just smile because I'm very stubborn. I don't like taking medicine because I hate it the way it hits the back of my throat. The rule is take your blood pressure medicines. I never took my blood pressure medicines. Take your Foslo. If you hadn't noticed, I probably refilled that prescription once. I took my Foslo. I only really started taking it when I saw a picture. My nurses showed me a picture of somebody whose body started becoming calcified and is probably scared of living death out of me.
I worried about Evan more than she is even aware. She finally, before her transplant, understood. When she was in that ICU in the hospital, she came so close to leaving us, and her mother and I had long talks. And then my little girl was growing up, and she was starting to get it. And maybe not as well as I was hoping, but she still tried. And I guess that's all I wanted, was her to try. And our goal was to get her to transplant, and that's what we were able to accomplish.
It doesn't surprise me that renal teams would think young adults are non-compliant because, I mean, they're non-compliant with a lot of things. That's part of that developmental process. When you're young, you rebel and you're trying to find your own way, and you're trying to make decisions for yourself, separate from your parents. And here you have a group of adults you're finally old enough to make decisions for yourself, and now you have another group of adults trying to tell you what to do. And at the same time, you don't want to face this illness. You don't want to think about it. And if you're not feeling sick on a daily basis, it's very easy to put it on a shelf and say, I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to live my life. I'm going to do what I want to do.
I think sometimes you have to talk with them. You have to set them down and ask them what's going on. And yes, there's going to be periods where they're non-compliant. They may run off to California. They may live in a boat, and you may have to chase them down. You may have to then chase them on the ski slopes and ask them to go get their labs and stuff. And it does take a lot of work, but from experience, we know these people can survive, and they do survive.
One of the ways for the last 30 years that I have tried to create a substitute bridge is having kids with kidney disease mentor other kids with kidney disease and help them grieve their loss of dreams and create a new normal. Okay, so maybe your body is not like the body of the kid that sits next to you in your history class. But you will have a peer group that can relate to your issues. That is just so incredibly helpful. It's so easy for the renal team to say what's wrong, but it is not so easy to help guide the young adult into a path that's going to get them to the point where they can be transplanted successfully. We can be so helpful in that if we can find a way.
My doctor had me talk to another patient of his, a girl that was, I think maybe 2 or 3 years older than me, sort of in the same, same place in her life, and she had gone through a kidney transplant. We sat and talked, and one of the first things she asked me was, so are you on prednisone? And I kind of went, she knows one of my drugs. And she knew that because she was on prednisone as well. And she said, well, what else are you taking? I said, oh, I'm on Cellcept, and I'm on, and I named a couple ones, and she's like, yeah, how's that prednisone affecting you? Are you going through mood swings? I said, oh my gosh, yes, it's horrible. And though my family was supportive, talking to another person who had actually been exactly where I was really helpful, and I didn't even realize that it would be.
My role models have been the different peers that I have met who have transplant and who have done successful things in their lives. I wish that there would have been more supports in place like that, and to talk to a young person, and while they're going through that whole, I'm angry because I didn't get to live my life. I didn't get to get married yet. I didn't get to have kids. I feel that the value of talking to a young patient as a peer mentor is just, it's monumental. Our medical system is set up to cure the disease or treat the disease. And it really doesn't look so much into the psychosocial aspects that affect different populations.
I think in many of the young adults that I've been involved with in my own family, children, nieces and nephews, I mean, they see adults as powerful individuals, and I put a white coat and the medical kind of power on top of that. The relationship, I think, can be even more intimidating, and go out of my way not to tell them what we're going to do, but try to explain to them what I'd like to do and why. Kind of get their buy-in, try to make it their decision, from a basis of knowledge, understanding about why it's important to do something that may be painful or time-consuming or require a lot of responsibility on their part, rather than just saying you have to do this or you'll die, or you have to do this or you'll get sick, to kind of explain to them why it might be in their best interest to do it and get their buy-in, as it were, rather than dictate to them.
I think young adults are very good at determining who really cares and who doesn't, who asks questions and don't wait for answers, or who asks questions and with an answer that they already formulated in their mind. So I think the best thing that one can do with young adults is actually stop, ask questions, and wait for the answer and listen. Outside of that, actually trying to give them an environment in which they can experiment around and for a little bit of their time try to be a normal young adult and not be that patient that we all expect to see in a dialysis chair. And I think that's important, to give them an environment to be free of that, or free of the expectation of being a patient or somebody that has a chronic illness.
I have noticed that young adults call for a closer relationship, a relationship of caring that is much more obvious, with more warmth, with more sharing. And as staff know, we're not trained to be that way. In fact, we're trained to be more detached. And in some ways, our professional rule book is don't create transference and countertransference. Watch your boundaries. Nurses are trained not to cry in front of their patients. Doctors generally don't share family stories with patients. And yet young adults thrive on relationships where it's human to human, where there's a feeling of humanness.
When I first started dialysis, I had a good relationship with my social worker. I think I was probably one of her youngest patients she had in a while, and she knew my situation, so she really came in and talked to me and checked in on me, not just as a medical staff person, but as a friend. That was valuable because I had a staff person who knew the disease, who knew I was going through from a medical standpoint, but also try to be there for me outside of that as a friend.
So I think it goes back to what I say. I think young adults can tell when people are not being genuine, and I think they do. They're, as much as we, try to sometimes don't think they're all there, I think they can figure this out, and they're very intuitive, very smart when it comes to knowing when people care and when people are just doing their job. But they want somebody to engage them and say, well, how are you doing in school? Are you having any problem with your girlfriends or your boyfriends, or what's up with your parents? Or you engage them in some kind of conversation. And then after, you're able to develop this rapport with them, then it's easier to slip in, how's your health doing, or what's this happening? So this way they have a sense that you care about them, not as a piece of paper with numbers on it, but as a whole being, a holistic approach. They want to feel that, you acknowledge them.
My one young adult that I'm thinking of, I connected with her years ago. The dietitian that was taking care of her, when I went over to say to this young lady, I said, I'll now be her dietitian. She said, oh, thank goodness, I'm so glad you're taking care of her, because she doesn't listen to anything I say. And I said, well, what's her biggest problem? They said, well, all she wants to do is eat at McDonald's. I said, oh, okay. So when I went in to see her, I said, hi, I'm going to be your new dietitian, and I hear you like to eat at McDonald's, and I think that's okay. And she was so surprised. I said, if you want to eat at McDonald's, I just have a couple rules. I want you to eat a hamburger, not a cheeseburger. If you eat French fries, I only want you to eat 12 to 15. You can have your friends buy it, and you can give them money, or you can eat a few and say, oh no, that's all I want, I don't want any more. And I don't want you to drink Coke or Pepsi, I'd rather have you drink Sprite or 7-Up. And she agreed. And through the years, we've become really, I think, more than just patient and dietitian, we've become friends. And she comes and talks to me about some of her family problems that she doesn't know how to deal with boyfriend problems. I also think it's, she doesn't always want to be on the receiving end. she likes to give too. And it makes it more of a friendship. So that way it's not that I'm always the dietitian telling her what to do. I'm more of a friend, and we exchange things as friends.
One of the things that, again, young adults need to establish is boundaries, and they need to know what healthy boundaries are. And you need to be able to allow them to experiment around with these boundaries, but also being able to establish them with them at the same time. Young adults falling in love or having a crush on some nursing staff, and that, you know, that's perfectly normal for young adults to move through this phase, and that's part of developing this interpersonal independence. Interdependency on other people is developing these kind of crushes and knowing what to do and stuff. And it's our responsibility to realize that the young adults are doing this, and we need to establish some boundaries and say, yes, you know, and acknowledge that this is happening and not letting it go on, but allowing this person to express it and talking to them about it and stuff like this, and giving the respect that this person needs.
I always have a lot of difficulty knowing exactly how to deal with family members, particularly parents of young adults. They can be very helpful, but they can also be a path to bypass the young adult. But I like to try to focus on the young adult as the person that I'm dealing with. I try to deal with the parents on the basis of agreements or parameters that the young adult agrees to. Their medical information is very clearly their own and not their parents'. And even if HIPAA wasn't a reality, I think that ethically, I think that the patient, the young adult patient, is the person that I have to deal with first, and then build a relationship with their family members based on what they want and what works, how it helps the therapeutic relationship. There is one young adult that I am extremely proud of our relationship with. Both he and his parents were having a great deal of difficulty in their interactions at another dialysis facility some distance away. And he was frustrated and not feeling well, and came to see me for a second opinion, and we admitted him into our program and got to know him. And we have an excellent relationship with the patient and his family. And you know, I'm very gratified that just by explaining the facts of his medical care to him, allowing him to participate in the decision making and deciding where we were going to make compromises in his quality of life versus quantity of dialysis and other treatments, that we built a strong enough relationship that in the end, we provided good dialysis and some emotional foundation for quality of life for him. And every time I see this patient for his routine monthly follow-up, I have a reason to get up in the morning and come to work tomorrow.